from Chicago, it's Startup Hype Man, the podcast. What's up, everyone? My name is Raj Nation, founder and chief pitch artist at Startup Hype Man, where we help startups not suck at how they pitch themselves. How? By making sure their audience sees them not as the best, but as the only. And this podcast is the only show where you will hear from leaders in the startup ecosystem sharing a piece of their heart, their mind, and their story on how they are charting their own path, growing their companies, and choosing not to play the game, but to change the game. Before we get going, hit the subscribe button on your podcast app so you never miss an episode. Also, head over to startuphypeman.com and subscribe to our Point of View letter, where we share original articles, insights, and resources, all to help you become the only of your industry. All right, get your popcorn ready and get hyped. It's showtime. Ladies and gentlemen, making her way to the microphone from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and currently residing in Birmingham, Alabama, she is the general partner at Black Tech Capital. Please welcome Keyona Meeks.
Woo! Go Keyona.
I always tell people, capture that. And what's funny is that, when we go to live, we'll give you this segment, that segment especially. Just play it as you walk into your next meeting.
Are you kidding me? That, your voice, the little clip, that's going to be me every day for a cool 3 months. It's time to wake up. My new alarm tone.
Your alarm clock.
Or maybe I'll make it my new ringtone and then have friends call me at predetermined selected time.
Every time the phone, ladies and gentlemen.
No, actually. And I'll be in a super serious meeting, $1 million on the table, and then that'll happen. And it'll be orchestrated. There you go. All right. So like I said, she is Keyona Meeks. She is the general partner at Black Tech Capital, a pre-seed fund. She's out of Alabama, but the pre-seed fund is based out of Toronto, and they're investing in Black and other underrepresented entrepreneurs, specifically focused on clean tech and climate tech, leveraging the manager's networks and track record, growing several companies to 9x valuation increases. Now, Keyona is a change maker because she's on the younger side, okay? Especially when you think about an investor, right? Only 3 years out of college, but she's already been a VC and started her own fund now, which is just wild. We got in touch a couple months back. We had a tough time ever even getting a meeting together. I showed up, you didn't, then you showed up and I didn't. Finally, we got together and we were we were vibing like crazy. And I was like, we got to do this podcast episode. So our topic today is something that Keyona is working on right now. It's something she's got a lot of experience with. And that is, as a startup, attracting and retaining young talent. Keyona, once again, welcome. Why is this on your mind? Why is this important to you? Oh, yeah. Well, one, it should be on everybody's mind all the time. Think of nothing else. No, it's for a lot of reasons. Obviously, attracting talent is important. For your startup, that's the only way that you're going to grow. Until we really nail down the AI thing, we still need human people. That's only going to last so long, though. This advice is probably only going to be relevant for another 10 years, maybe. But yeah, no, it's important to me because I see my wonderful, talented, creative, super capable friends from high school and college and the Venture for America program in places where they're not necessarily happy and where they're not getting paid their worth. And as I like to say, in J-Pal's economy, it can't fly, when butter costs $6 a stick, we got to figure something out. And I just want to see my friends live bountiful lives. I definitely don't believe in the struggle narrative that I think we get pitched a lot as Americans, where it's if you, 10, 15, 20 years, you grind away in the salt mines, then maybe, just maybe, you'll earn a chance to go outside. I don't believe in that. And very much so pro the life that you want is the life that you can create. And just want to make it more accessible for my super awesome, capable friends to get great, meaningful, fulfilling jobs. But yeah, and then of course on the startup side, like that's your whole business. Without talent, you don't have anything.
You can already hear the Gen Z-ness oozing out of your pores as you speak. I love it. I love it. So we're going to talk a whole lot more.
Today. Sorry, go ahead.
We're going to talk a whole lot more about that topic. Before we do that, let's learn a little bit more about you, the person. So I'm curious to know, growing up in the Baton Rouge area, what do you feel growing up in like the southern the southern like Louisiana and sort of environment? What do you feel that taught you about people?
Oh, the things I've learned about people. Oh, wow. A lot. I would say something that I love dearly or appreciate very much so about being a Southerner and being from the South and experiencing this culture is that I have gotten fairly adept at navigating like racial conversations and like understanding the nuances of those different cultures that share the same place, but often occupy different worlds. So the South is like, growing up here, especially growing up Black here, is a 101 on that, on navigating those things. And when I went to UC San Diego for college and noticed just how like it was very much so beneath the surface, whereas in the South, we're a lot more frank when we're talking about race. And so we can get to the meat. We can get to the meat and potatoes of the story a lot faster because we're not playing games, maybe there's a tension or an uncomfortableness, but we all just like will sit with that. It doesn't stop the conversation. Whereas I found on the West Coast, it usually does. So I would say that's like one of the primary things I learned about people growing up in the South. And then, of course, just and a big part of that is radical empathy. And it's a value that I like maybe a few years ago, I was like, okay, this is my value. And so now I'm definitely in the process of uncovering where I'm not practicing it. But growing up in the South really helped me with that. And that the only way you're going to be able to relate to somebody who's, occupying a different world, different culture, different skin tone, different income bracket, like totally different life, is if you're able to relate to your human experience on a deep, grounded level and then see the humanity in them, and that requires, like, I remember I was talking to a friend some weeks back and she was like, oh, we read Pride and Prejudice in high school. She's like, I can't relate to this little white girl. What does she complain about?
Where's the prejudice?
But I'm obsessed with that book and the show and the movie. Yes, the 1998 version and the 2005 version. That
was already 2005? Keira Knightley, that one?
Yeah. Oh. Yo, if you haven't, go back and rewatch it. A, it holds up. B, there's a lot of up and comings in 2005, that movie, that are now like big. What's her name? Carrie. Oh, darn.
Washington?
Off topic. Nah, not her. I'm thinking about the woman who did A Promising Young Woman. She was like the lead in that.
Oh, yeah. I don't know the name. I know who you're talking about though.
Yeah. No, she's a star. Anyways, there's a lot of people in that are really great. But yeah, and I was like, what? That like blew my mind. Because A, it's one of my favorites. And it's one of my favorites because I could really relate to her like uncovering those prejudices in herself. And then how she related to her family. She loved them, but she didn't always like them. No acts. I don't think my family's gonna listen to this, but in case they do. But it's like having a complex shifting relationship with how close and how included you feel in your family, how you relate to your friends, like the whole situation with her and her best friend, Charlotte. I really felt that, like her friend being like, I had to do what I had to do. And you have to, like, you don't get to judge me for that, There's so many different aspects of that story that's just so fundamentally human, And I think growing up in the South taught me to see those things first. So like, even when I'm talking like politics to my friends, I'm much more interested on the things that we all agree on, the things that are popular, as opposed to like the 80%, as opposed to the 20% of things that we're really divided on, So yeah, that's that.
I I think back to the original movie because we both read the book but watched it in high school, and I don't remember if it's Mr. Bingley or Mr. Darcy, but like comes over for dinner and then he's like finishing up dinner and he goes, I thought I might have read to you all for 4 or 5 hours after we're done eating. I'm like, that sounds awful.
Because it was terrible. That he held the family hostage, and that was their cousin, whose name is also escaping me right now. But
so it wasn't Bingley or Darcy; it was just someone else.
No, it was neither one of them. Those are two respectable gentlemen. Okay, that was their cousin who owned the estate. He sucked. All right, so I could see in him just like trying really hard and connected on that, because that was me, like especially like middle school, high school, just trying so hard, but not actually connecting. Sure. And then when you stop trying so hard, you can often connect a lot easier. Anyways,
on that note of movies and entertainment and things like that, if there were to be a movie about the life of Keyona Meeks, who's playing you and why?
Of the talent that is alive and working right now, young Keyona, I don't know. That said, I feel like Lupita Nyong'o she would do a good like middle-aged 40s Keyona. I think she's got the spunk for it.
Okay. All right. I can get down with that. And by last name alone, you would not choose Meek Mill to have a role in this movie?
I would not. I don't listen to any of his music and I have no opinions of this man. It's just in high school, there's this kid named Trevor Jackson who every time he saw me in the hallway, like, even though we never talked, he would go Meeks, and I would be like,
There was always those people, I feel like, in school who you had zero relationship with, but took it upon themselves to like create a nickname. And like, that was the extent of the relationship, was just saying each other's name in passing.
Literally.
All right. So let's talk about what you're doing now. And that'll be a good segue towards our primary topic. So Black Tech Capital, it just got off the ground in the last couple months. Talk about why you decided to start this and what the whole mission and goal is here.
Yeah, so I did start this. I came on to the firm, like 2 months ago. So I got my start in VC here in Birmingham with Bronze Valley. Bronze Valley is a venture CDFI nonprofit that gets money like a nonprofit, but then distributes it like a VC would. So with them, I was raising grant money, talking to different stakeholders, both for money and like strategic partnerships. And then of course, all the things that go with deal flow, setting up those systems of deal flow, those pipelines, reviewing all those mini pitch decks. But that's the name of the game, mini pitch decks. Oh, title of my autobiography, many pitch decks. Anyways, but yeah, like the whole kit and caboodle with that. Really, really am grateful for my time there. But they got to a point where I think it was two sides of tension there. One was that I was like, okay, all the growing that I'm doing now is me initiated as opposed to from the role itself, which is an exhausting kind of state to be in, when the only factor that's pushing you towards growth is your will. That's just not sustainable. And so I was like, okay, at some point I'm gonna have to put myself in a different situation. And then the other half of that was just the market. Everything that was going on, obviously the Great Resignation, the boom of remote work. And I was just like, the future is so optimistic. And I had really great relationships with Generator, shout out Generator, with WeFunder, shout out to them too, as well as like several other startup related things. And I was like, okay, like, let me step out on faith here, faith on myself, faith in the outcome, that I can leave this role, go do something else, grow, and learn a lot. Without my world coming down. Mm-hmm. I think, side note, that's why a lot of people stay in places that they're not happy, is the fear of the unknown. But then I was just like, okay, wait a second. think about everything you've been through, everything you've accomplished. You've earned the faith that you have in yourself. Step on it, and that, and my budget looked me in the face, and we were like, oh, things have to change. So I left. I left, and was just had every intention of like chilling, taking it slow, seeing what was going on. And then literally the 2-week period after I left were probably some of the most intense days that I ever had, in that it was just meeting after meeting after conversation after conversation. And like, it was truly overwhelming just how much opportunity there was. And then my lovely friend, Forrest Richter, I think that's how you say it, Forrest Richter, who I know through WeFunder, he posted, he was like, yeah, working with this cool guy based off of Ontario. And he's looking for, this is not how Forrest talks.
I know, yeah, Ontario.
He's looking for a Black female GP to help him run this Black tech capital firm. And I was like, I volunteer, and talked to Brian Duarte, who's a wonderful, wonderful man. And we just hit it off immediately, both based off of our backgrounds. We come from different places in the diaspora, the Black diaspora, but many of our life experiences overlap. And even though he's like 50 something and I'm like 23, we still had so much like mutual understanding and like a mutual perspective of the world, where it was like, oh, we can build something together, something significant. And I just really, really jived with the way that he approached entrepreneurship. I've always been of the belief that the reason why I started down this path of VC and entrepreneurship, like the whole ecosystem in general, is because I grew up really low income, often housing insecure, and occasionally food insecure as well. And was just like, this is crazy. Like, there's nothing about me innately that deserves to lack in resource, to, experience a scarcity. So I was like, okay, so this isn't on me. Like, this is definitely a comment on the system and the world in which we live. And so I went into college very intentionally trying to understand and solve that question, that problem. Came across the concept of impact investing, probably like my junior year, and just went wild with that. Eventually came into the arms of Venture for America, and that is the relationship that got me to Birmingham. So I know those are several different backstory plot points, but yeah. So I've always been of the belief, well, not always, but since college, I've been of the belief that entrepreneurship and investing in entrepreneurs is how we not just alleviate poverty, but how we eliminate it, by empowering people to be their brilliant selves. Something that doesn't get talked a lot about with poverty is that it's just not low income. It's also, you don't have time. And if you don't have time, you can't think, right. Because when you're, paycheck to paycheck, or, you're constantly doing this cash flow analysis of your situation, there's no time to dream bigger. Because you're just trying to make it to tomorrow. And so while I'm definitely still like finding my rhythms, and I think it'll take me a cool 6 months to a year to really get those down, it's very important to me that we approach entrepreneurship as this, or take advantage of entrepreneurship as this way to really just create so much wealth for so many people on a relatively short timeline. Like, we don't need generations to make this happen. We need 10 years, and then like, just to be a nice cash flowing, profitable business, you really don't even need that. You need maybe a year, and the product market fit. Like, so I just think entrepreneurship is such a powerful tool. And Brian views entrepreneurship that way. And we are both really passionate, particularly about Black founders, because I'm Black. So it's
for those of you listening on audio, which is all of you, she pointed to her hand indicating her skin color.
just so you know, I am a African American woman, and so yeah, no, I definitely I want to see all Black people win, and I think we do that through entrepreneurship. And Brian agreed. And on top of that, like I'm very pro like fundamentals. Like people ask me about like the market correction that's happening right now. Like obviously that can always happen. Like bubbles can be created and sustained and burst, and that's a whole cycle that can happen. But I think when as an investor and as a founder, you have a focus on the basics of making repeatable, scalable processes, and you don't let other people, other VCs, or the new news outlets or whatever overvalue your company. And you're very like, you come at things with a bottom up mentality as opposed to like it was funny. I was talking to somebody the other day and they were like, my TAM is everybody.
Not a good lead.
Not a great lead. It wasn't the best lead I ever heard. But like, your TAM is not everybody. And when you get realistic and you're like, okay, these are the associations that cater to my audience. I'm confident that we can capture 25% of their audience with this strategic partnership. And we plan on doing this with these 3 other organizations over the next 2 years, resulting in, XYZ customers. Like I hear that and I'm like, oh, okay, that's a for real plan. Those are real numbers. That's not 7 billion people and counting, So I think like and then like being protective of that, there's so much I've noticed like education that has to happen with founders, because overvaluing your company can be the death of your company. You look up, now you have to lay off 25% of your workforce. And so I'm definitely looking forward. There's always a silver lining to things. And I'm looking forward to post this correction that's happening, founders being more educated because they understand the importance of not having that education. Anyways, Brian and I hit it off. That's how I ended up at Black Tech Capital.
Well, one of the things you mentioned there was, without or if you overvalue your company, you might have to lay off, let's say 25% of your workforce. So let's talk about the workforce, right? As a concept overall, as startups think about hiring, attracting, and then retaining, not any talent, but just young talent specifically. From what you've observed from the companies you've worked with, from your own experiences going through a hiring process in your past, what are some of the things or trends you're observing that seem to be common across companies? And are those trends good or bad?
Yeah, well, I would say, especially if you're somebody that wants to work for a startup and you're listening to this, or just like period with the job hunting process, it is all about best fit. It is like it's not about you, the person, and how, quote unquote, worthy you are, how good you are. None of that, like that's not relevant because no one has the metric for that. No one can measure that. Like you're good enough. It's simply, are you a good fit for this role? And right now there's not a lot of great mechanisms for finding the best fit before you have that initial conversation. And I'm sure we'll, figure out a solution to this long term. But right now, it's just about really having conversations and understanding. It's so easy to get really intimidated by the whole job process because it can be so, not demeaning, but discouraging. It's like I've talked to 20 companies and either I don't want to work for any of them or none of them wanted me. It's like, great. Like you got 20 no's. That means you already know where you don't want to be. And that's valuable information. But anyways, when it comes to market trends, I see a huge divide between the talented, capable people that want jobs, the talented, capable young people, and the awesome companies that need these jobs. That need these jobs filled. And I think a big part of that comes from us just not having the systems in place to be able to really handle that, but efficiently. But B, I think it's also because startups can be in the bad habit of just throwing their job descriptions into the void. The void being LinkedIn or Indeed or whatever, instead of going the community route. So right now I'm in on deck for community builders as a fellow because I genuinely very much so believe that community building, community management is going to be the future. Like I I say this like in a cheeky Gen Z way, but also totally serious. That college is a scam. Like for real. Like unless you're like going to be an engineer or a doctor, and even that, like the knowledge that you need to get where you want to go is available, and it's either available for free or for $19.99 a month. So it's like you don't need to spend like multiple thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars to go get this degree, because if the whole point of the degree is knowledge and network, and then of course a shorthand to communicate what you know, then you can do all those things in a more profitable way, a more experiential way, and a significantly cheaper way. But I forget what was my point with that? Because I was
I think the kind of the origin of this is the gap that exists between the companies that want the roles filled and the people who are working and going a community route versus like a posting and going into the void route.
Yeah. So community is mad important. So, and I'll shout out Work on Climate because I think it's a excellent example of what the future looks like. And it's now. So Work on Climate is this awesome Slack group, and they have a Notion page as well. That's just for people in the end, like just professionals that want to be working on climate change solutions. So if you're interested in that at all, like get in there. And I think we are seeing more of these kind of groups, more of these communities that are like, hey, like you want to be a part of this. Here's an entire like Slack group of professionals that are already in the industry that are actively looking for new talent, come in here, become a part of the community, learn, make new friends, and then also get you a new job. And I found that to be a lot more successful and just, energizing than clicking through posts on LinkedIn. Even when I have a lot of friends that'll come to me, so within the fellowship, within the Venture for America fellowship, I've kind of gathered a reputation for when people are ready to make a change, they'll end up on my doorstep. And it's like, okay, like I'm not happy with my job, and I want to start looking. And I do have like a little mini job board. Pro tip: if you find a VC that you really like, or like let's say your industry is aerospace, go find an aerospace VC, and their portfolio companies and their jobs will be listed most likely on that portfolio companies, on that venture capital firm's website. And if it's not, just send them an email. Be like, I really want to be in aerospace. This is my background and how I think I can contribute. Do you have any open positions? The answer is yes. Yes, they do. So like getting creative and taking on the mindset of being proactive. And I don't mean proactive as in scrolling through LinkedIn. I mean being proactive about defining what are my values and what's the work environment that I want to be in. And then just going and finding it, because those people are there and they often already have a community.
Well, let's look at the other side of that equation then, right? So on the company side, from the founder, from the CEO perspective, what can the startup be doing to get in front of these kinds of people and make sure that they're able to even like project their values as a company so that the candidates may know what they would align with? Well,
and this is so important, and obviously you know this, but you have to set your culture from the beginning, because there will be a culture. And it's just a matter of whether you have successfully influenced it to be the one that you want, that aligns with your values as a founder and what the values that you want your company to hold, or not. So that's from the get-go, from the jump. Define what your values are, define your culture, and the processes and the different methods of accountability that your culture has in place to maintain those values. And once you know who you are, then you can step out and be like, come work with us. So just right off the bat, this is for real. Like a lot of startups need to get really serious about what their values are, because in your branding, in your messaging, in your strategic partnerships, in your major enterprise customers, like all that's going to be super relevant because it'll be great. And of course, and when your investors that you choose, all that's going to be super relevant. And you want your co-founders to be all on the same page before you step into that fray. So if you value transparency and you're going to an investor who gives a hoot or a half about whether or not, your product increases transparency in your customers' lives, you don't need them. They don't need to be working with you. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of money in the market. A lot of states, literally, Tennessee, Nebraska, states are getting into the venture game, as well as a lot of
as like entities. A governmental entity. They have like a venture.
So there's I feel like there's and then of course we have entire new markets coming online, or really getting popular, like India and China. So there's just so much money out there right now. You need to get clear from the jump what the values that you have and who you want to work with. And that goes both for investors and for your talent. But regarding talent, once you know what your values are and you're talking about that, go find the spaces that already exist that share those values. And so you can, of course, go to colleges and set up your booth. Like that works. But I think you can get a way more passionate, more value aligned workforce if, let's say, you're going to a local crypto group. These are all people who have a healthy distrust of the monetary system, and you're a Web3 company. It's a match made in heaven.
There's already a base interest or understanding. It's kind of like the equivalent of, sometimes people will ask me oh, how come Startup Hype Man doesn't have a bigger Instagram presence? We have an Instagram account, we post some stuff on there. It's kind of just to post podcast content more than anything else. And I personally just don't have the wherewithal to keep up with my personal Instagram and the company one as well. Right. But I've always said, I'm you know what? We live on LinkedIn because I know there's a way better shot that the content we create and put on LinkedIn is going to get in front of the right people. Versus on Instagram, everyone has there's our market is everyone thing, right? Everyone is on Instagram. So I don't need, for example, my mom to see Startup Hype Man. Cool, she does, but it doesn't really matter if she does, right? Whereas on LinkedIn, and if we create the content for that channel, it's the equivalent of a special interest group out of the gate. Right. It's knowing that there's a higher likelihood that this content is going to hit with the people who have gathered here versus if I just, went out into the square and started shouting, hey, this is the thing that I'm doing and I'm interested in, and I want you to be interested in it too.
The square. I love that. Yeah, no, so the advice boils down to the people that are proactive, the kind of people that you want to work at your company anyways, are probably doing extra things. So they're probably in some other, city-based club or school-based club that's around that topic, or maybe it's just if they're more value focused, then going to a community center and seeing what's there. My point is simply that get really creative and ask yourself, where are these people already? And you'll have a lot higher rates of success instead of because it's easy. I feel like it's relatively easy. You come up with a job description, you post on LinkedIn, you sit back, you chill, get your little margarita. But then you've cast your net really, really wide, as opposed to going to where those communities already exist and speaking on your values and how you want, and your vision, where you see the company going, allowing people to be inspired by you and to really resonate with your message. And then the people that show up at your doorstep are not people that browse your website. These are people that heard your story and want to be a part of it, you know? So just get creative.
I want to share an anecdote on that specific note of around job descriptions and get your opinion on that as well. Before we go there, this whole conversation is really what it is about scaling a company. And another element of scale is your product and your product strategy. Let's say you're building an app, for example. Let's say you already built it and it's launched. Awesome. Congratulations. It's not the end. It's actually the beginning of your journey of your product scalability, et cetera. And if you're not aware, about 4 in 5 apps are being abandoned after a single use. Why? Well, they're not actually delivering what the users really want. I know if I look at my iPhone right now, there are more than half the apps I downloaded once, and then they're like sitting up in the cloud and they're not going to be like re-downloaded. So how do you improve your own app to prevent something like that from happening? Prevent download and delete or download and cloud, right? Well, fear not. You just need an experienced partner that can help you out in this quest. And that's where Makito comes in. Makito is the team of design, software development, and product strategy experts that have built over 150 successful products for both startups and enterprises. So what that means is they have the grit, the know-how, the agility to work at the startup level. But because they also work with enterprise, they have the experience around the scalability to know how do you take it from where it is today to being in the hands of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and ultimately millions of users. And you could join that group as well of getting your product in the hands of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and millions of users if you join forces with Makito. To learn more and see if they could be the right partner for you, just go to Makito.com/hypeman. That's MIQUIDO.com/hypeman. Makito.com/hypeman. Today on Startup Hype Man, the podcast, we're talking with Keyona Meeks from Black Tech Capital on attracting and retaining young talent. Now, Keyona, you were talking about like this idea of, you could just post a job description versus going into communities. So a personal anecdote I can share, because I just went through a hiring process to add 2 new roles here on the Startup Hype Man team, which was, it was very much a learning experience for me. And I did go I didn't create a job posting on LinkedIn. I just off my personal account, I was like, hey, here's what we're looking for. And then I copied that and pushed it through our email list as well. And you know what? I got some pretty good candidates out of it, and the people I've hired, I'm very happy with. I think though, the sentiment is the same in that I didn't have an inactive LinkedIn account. And then I was like, okay, here's my job posting. I had essentially cultivated and curated a community, if you will, because of a big buildup of content around specific interests and topics over many years. Right. And same thing with the email list. People people who are reading that are clearly interested in the certain type of stuff. Right. But also what I did is I didn't copy paste someone else's job description. I wrote it from scratch. I even created the titles from scratch because, and this is something that a friend of mine who's a career coach, he was like, I don't know if you want to go that route because it's too confusing for people. And I was like, I could be wrong. But I want someone who's going to gravitate towards the title of pitch artist. I want someone who's going to naturally gravitate towards the title of content artist. I want someone who sees themselves as an artist in this respect. I'm curious from your perspective, as you look at job descriptions and you look at job titles, do these things need to be standardized in order to be able to have that immediate recognition by the market? Or is there some room for creativity here? And is that the right path to go if we're trying to attract talent?
Interesting question. I'm going to say yes and yes and no. In that it really depends on you and your company. If you have a more creative, artistic kind of company, then yeah, you need somebody who's going to see the value in artistry because they are an artist. And even if they can't make the next Michelangelo, they can.
I certainly can't.
You just have to believe. No,
Picasso of pitch decks. How about that?
Picasso. No, that's.
Oh man, I got to start using that. Oh my god, yeah. I've never used that before.
I love that. But yeah, no. So if it's more of an artsy, creative role, yeah, you can get fun with it because that's the kind of person that you'd like to attract. But if you need an account manager, you need to say that. You need to say that you're looking for an account manager, but not an accounts manager prowess. I don't know. Don't get fancy with things you don't need to get fancy with. It's simply answering the question: who am I targeting? What would attract them? And if you're looking for, a rock star accountant, you want them to be able to find you. So you don't need to put rock star in the title. Maybe put that in the description and be like, yeah, I'm looking for somebody who's great at accounting and loves what they do. I don't know. Yeah. I guess there are people that are passionate about accounting, but yeah, it's just like, use your best judgment.
What are things then, I think the interview process is very interesting. This was my first time conducting a formal, rounds of interviews. And I'm honest with people. I'm like, I don't know if I can't confidently say I'm a good interviewer of others when it comes to like hiring. Right. I think I'm a good interviewer in a podcast, but when it comes to hiring, I was like, I was constantly like second guessing myself over, am I even asking the right questions? Like, am I running this process the right way? Now, again, I did get, candidates who I thought were awesome and the people I've hired are great. But overall, I'm like, I look back and I'm just like, well, do I even know if my process was good or not? So what recommendations do you have for a founder, a CEO who's starting to build out their team for how they should actually run the hiring process?
And this won't be a new piece of advice, slow to hire, fast to fire. Like, definitely take your time in that hiring process. And keep in mind, you're not God. You don't know if people are good or bad or anything like that. You can only process the information that you get from them. So with that in mind, be on the lookout for best fit. It's like, who do I want to work with every day? Obviously, like you have to talk to these people. So you need to actually be, friendly, if not friends. And then, because at the end of the day, most things aren't that hard, So if you can find somebody who's generally talented, is focused, you can carry them a lot of the rest of the way and help them refine their processes and how they do the job. So I think in hiring, there should be a lot less emphasis on like the background and the skill of the person, so much as, is this person talented? Are they a good culture fit? And when I think good culture fit, I don't mean just like everybody else. Like, are they going to help the team grow? Like, do they have a growth mindset? Do they stand up for themselves? Do they speak up? Because if they can speak up for themselves during the interviewing process, then I know for sure they can speak up in a meeting. Because you, like as a founder especially, there's so much on your plate. You need people that are going to hold you accountable. And I don't mean like, I saw you eating a Twinkie at lunch today and you said you were trying to lose 3 pounds. I just want to let you know that that's not okay. That's not like anything like that, but like, your tone with our client this morning, I think it made them uneasy. And maybe we should take some time to reflect on how that meeting went a little bit more. You definitely want a team that can speak up. And so as long as somebody A, is creative, B, personable, has a decent emotional intelligence, you as the founder have it within yourself to be like, okay, now this is how you artfully put together a pitch deck. It's something that can be taught, just like most things. Everything is learned. Everything can be taught. It's just a matter of, when you're a startup, obviously you're trying to calculate, do I actually have time to teach this person all these things, or what information do I need them to know like day one so that they can get started on XYZ day one? So you need to evaluate that from the jump. Like, that needs to be one of the first questions you ask yourself. After, what is a best fit candidate? What is our culture? And, what kind of person am I looking to bring in? It also needs to be, do I need them to have this skill set from the jump, or can I afford a 3-month, 6-month onboarding, ramp up and knowledge process?
Yeah.
And it'll be different for every business. You just have to use your best judgment. And something that I love to tell founders all the time is like, this is your baby. Like, obviously I come in here with all of my pages and pages of unsolicited VC advice, giving unsolicited VC advice. That's what I do, but at the end of the day, this is your baby. This is your company. You're the one that's doing the toiling, the grinding, the planning, the strategic vision. So just really own it. And and I know that you were unsure about the process, but I'm sure you did great, because it's just a matter of finding who's the best fit, and I don't mean to say just as if it's such a simple task. but that it is like one focused thing that you're doing. It's really not a matrix of different things. It's let me find the best fit to meet my needs right now, both my needs from a value perspective and from like the actual work perspective. Yeah. And then, like I said, finding those people by going where they already are is how you do that a lot faster.
I think that I want to make this point, and then I want to ask a different question, but you've mentioned it a few times, and I think it's so important for everyone to understand that the values piece is so critical. 6 months before I knew I was going to be ready to start hiring, I worked with an outside consultant to develop company core values. And I can't tell you how helpful it was in the hiring process. Like one of the rounds of the interviews was, here are our core values. Pick one of these. Here's one, like you have 6. Pick one, send a video back telling me a story of a personal value that you have that relates to one of these. And a story around like how that was tested and how that value was shaped. And that was really valuable to me and our company to see, how do people think through these, which values did they align with? Is there a clash, et cetera? Right. And even if you don't do it as direct as that, even just knowing in the back of your head, like this is what our company is anchored on, is so helpful as you start to figure out who are the right people for your team. Now that said, what's that? Yeah, it's a map. Exactly.
Yeah. Instead of just like Lewis and Clark starting from scratch, like you're like,
literally writing the map as they're going.
Yeah, no, like
literally.
You don't need to do that. Like you can just be like, oh wait, I value honesty, courage, transparency.
Yeah.
And then go find that.
I always wonder how, without an overhead view from space, how did anyone ever like draw like dividing lines between states or regions or anything, and like basically get it right too.
I know photographers back in the day. Oh, they really knew what they were doing.
All right. So I want to spend a couple minutes before we close out here talking about the other side of this equation, which is retaining, right? Talk about attracting. Yeah. What does it take? You get the right people. What does it take to ensure, especially amidst the great resignation, which is starting to shift now because of the market's turning over. But what does it take to keep people on your team, especially if they're good people? that you found?
Growth. I can't say that enough. People, especially talented people, they want to constantly be upping their game. Like I have a friend who reached out to me this weekend talking about, I'm ready to go. Tell me, how do I start? What do I do? And that's because they were not feeding, they were not feeding her growth. And I see that happen. I've seen it happen dozens and dozens of times. It's if you do not provide an internal culture, an environment that gives people more responsibility, that trains them on new skills and allows them autonomy, you're going to lose your people. If you're a micromanager, listen to me right now. You got to stop that. Because people will leave. Nobody likes that. And so it's funny, I think it's a very American thing to be like, oh, if you don't like it, just leave. They will. It's a great resignation. Everybody is leaving. Okay. So you don't figure it out quick. And so that doesn't mean, like, when I say growth for retention, that truly is the single most important thing, because even if people are unhappy with their pay, even if, you don't have kombucha on tap, which, the cruelty of that, but like you cannot have any of those amenities, and you can even be on the lower end of the pay scale, which, as a startup, you probably are, at least until you secure funding. But if you have a growth-oriented plan for each of your employees, and you communicate to them that plan, like nobody should be in the dark, like it's not an evil scheme, it's their growth plan. So like from day one being like, okay, we're going to get you onboarded over these next 3 months. You're going to learn every part of the company, so you understand how your work fits into everybody else's work. You'll get the rhythms for communication down. But in 6 to 9 months, we'd like to see you doing this responsibility. And hopefully, 1.5, 2 years down the line, we'd like you to be an account manager for this region or something like that. If people know that key thing, no, like you have to communicate this to them. Obviously, I'm a big fan of transparency.
Yeah.
But from the get-go, it's like, this is the plan that I have for you. This is your professional development budget. Here's what we recommend you spend it on. Like, just have a growth-oriented culture, because that's just going to be good for your business, period. Because then you're having people with the industry knowledge and with the intimate knowledge of your company staying with you for the long haul. They're going to be able to take your company to the next level compared to a lot better, a lot more efficiently than some newcomer can. A newcomer that has to learn all the things both about your company and the industry before they can really make some effective change. Like, so if you are a growth-oriented company, both externally for your customers and internally with your workforce from the jump, like, success is inevitable, because you'll be able to retain talent. And at the very least, like, I think something that very much so irritates me about a lot of startup founders that I see is that they're not investing in their talent. And you need to be investing in their growth so that way they stay. Like, it's really not that hard. Pay people more, but whether you can or not, you need to have a growth-centric culture that's prioritizing them leveling up as people and professionals, like, period.
This reminds me of, at this point, I think it was 8 or 9 years ago, I wrote this article where I came up with this theory I called the 70% rule. And the idea was that, and I think it's Googleable if anyone wants to look it up, just type my name in like 70% rule. I think it's somewhere online.
I will.
What I came up with was this concept that, like, no job will ever be 100% of the things you would picture in an ideal job, right? Because there's always just like stuff that has to get done, even in the best jobs in the world, right? And in fact, the chances are you only have about 30% of the stuff you really love doing. Mm-hmm. And the rest is filled with 70% of like, just like admin stuff, or like, what I don't really love doing is like drawing up contracts for our customers, but I do it, right? Because I have to get to the good stuff. And so if that's the breakout, it's like knowing that even a good job, you're probably only getting 30% of the time is spent doing the stuff you effing love. And the remaining 70% is like the work that just has to get done because it's part of the job overall. That 30% is so sacred that it means that the remaining 70%, in order to keep that person satisfied and happy and staying with you, has got to be also filled with essentially respect. And respect comes in a few different ways. Respect is, are they getting paid fairly? And I could even argue like better than fairly, right? That's true.
Yeah.
Do you have like a solid like time off or like work from home policy, or like a flexible enough policy that matches a modern lifestyle? Do you have a boss who will champion you and like be your advocate and your mentor? Do you feel safe bringing up issues in the workplace, right? These are all elements of respect that your employees need to receive. And do they feel like the work they do every day, do they understand how it's connected to the bigger picture? Do they know what their own growth trajectory looks like, right? So that to me is what this reminds me of, is that 70% rule, that you've got to be able to fill that 70% of admin work with enough respect so that only getting the 30% of the amazing work is enough for your employees.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. I love that so much. I'm gonna go read that article and then tout it as my own thing. Good. It simply comes down, if you invest into your workforce, they will invest in you, because you're right. And that's so much of the work that you have to do just has to get done. It's not the glamorous stuff. So what's keeping people doing that work? It's because they know that, you, the boss, respect them, care about their growth, and invested in seeing them grow as a person, just invest in your people, man.
We're almost out of time here, so let's begin our wrap up. First off, Keyona, where can our listeners find you, and where can they learn more about Black Tech Capital?
Yeah, so the Black Tech Capital website is not live yet. So sit on your hands for that. We have a LinkedIn
What will
page.
the URL be if someone listens to this 6 months from now?
Most likely blacktechcapital.com.
There's not that. It'll probably be .vc or one of those iterations.
Yeah, one of those. We've been fancy with our dots lately. But you can definitely follow me, Keyona Meeks on LinkedIn. I post infrequently, but I'm getting better. Okay, I'm getting better. So LinkedIn is my number one for sure. I'm also on Twitter at Keyona_Meeks. And you could follow me on Instagram, but things get real there. So I would proceed with caution. But LinkedIn and Twitter for sure.
Keyona, who is one person who you want to shout out who has been helpful to you on your journey?
Yeah. Oh, so many excellent people. Okay. Well, first of all, I can't just be like one person. I just can't do it. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're not. So give me one. Don't say team. Don't say group. Don't worry. It's not the only person you'll ever shout out in your life. Just a person who's been helpful to you.
Fine. Okay. Then I'm going to say, I got to shout out Neil Wright. Neil Wright, the CEO and president of Bronze Valley. Bronze Valley is where I got my start. And I'm infinitely grateful for my time there. When Neil and I first met, it was, 2020. I was at my auntie's house, she let me stay there during the thick of Corona. And we had literally one warm introduction and one conversation. And then I was on a plane to Birmingham. And because, when you know. So shout out to Neil for believing in me and seeing my potential from the beginning, and then giving me the opportunity and the autonomy to grow in this role and to grow in this industry. I'm very grateful for that. Thank you, Neil.
We'll now do our top 1 to 2 lessons and takeaways from our conversation today. The topic was attracting and retaining young talent. I'll go first, and I'll toss it to you. My biggest takeaway, I love the community piece you mentioned, so I hope I don't steal your thunder with that, but it was, I think, probably the best thing that I heard out of this conversation, or the thing that's sticking with me the most, I should say. And really, it's the idea that you can shorten the distance between your company and the best candidates for your company by embedding yourself within special interest communities that your company would care about.
Precisely. Second takeaway, and this is more of a bigger picture thing, but if you put in a lot of work in the upfront, you can be on cruise control afterwards. Especially when it comes to talent. If you do the work of defining your values, that's the other takeaway. Define your values today. If you have not, get your little founding team together, go on a little mini retreat, figure it out. Because that's how you're going to be able to bring on new people, is by knowing where you're going. So yeah, know where you're going, define your values, and put in a lot of work up front with that. And then you won't be wrestling with people who actually aren't a good fit, 6 months down the line when you've already invested so much time and money into training them. So yeah, put the work up front. That's my takeaway.
My final question, which is how we end every episode on this show, fill in the blank, Keyona. Entrepreneurship is blank.
Entrepreneurship is how we solve inequality.
I don't think anything else needs to be said but that. Entrepreneurship is how we solve inequality. I love it. She is Keyona Meeks from Black Tech Capital. Keyona, thank you so much for joining today on Startup Hype Man, the podcast.
Thanks for having me. This is a blast.
And for all you listening out there, stay tuned and stay in touch by subscribing to our Point of View letter, because coming soon is the official Startup Hype Man mixtape, a hip hop album dedicated to the founder journey. We're working on that right now in the background. There's some fire tracks that are in production, and can't wait to drop that later in 2022. So keep an eye out by staying in tune through our Point of View letter at startuphypeman.com. That's a wrap on this one. Shout out to our guest once again for sharing their story with us. If what you heard impacted you, do one of three things. 1, let our guests know. Reach out to them directly. They love hearing from you. 2, leave a rating and review on Apple. Or 3, simply hit the share button and share this episode with one friend who you think would benefit from hearing it. Catch our full episode archive at startuphypeman.com/podcast. And if you want to make your pitch not suck, reach out to us through the website. That's all for this week. We'll catch you next time. Raj Nation out. Believe the hype.